Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders. From physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance, we leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey, everybody, answering the call, the First Responders podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles. We're having too much fun here. We're having more fun than we should be having. And,
That's right. And I'm Jersey Ed down in the garage or the Quarantineville garage. So
the garage.
The garage.
Giving the garage.
Kind of liking this. Took the sheet down.
Mm-hmm.
Got my cigars. Got my AC from my neighbor.
I love it.
Yeah.
You don't have a car parked in there either.
I don't got a car parked in there now.
No car. No car.
And I'm lucky. I'm in Sweet Studio. I'm surrounded by all these wonderful gadgets, lights, mirrors, everything. I have electric chair going on here, and
Giving him a nice weird massage.
that's right. Oh yeah, I had the massage going. That's right.
Massage chair.
Yep. And I'm with the producer extraordinaire, Sweets, the man, the myth, the legend.
Just lurking in the shadows today, like I always do,
Yep.
trying to make you guys look and sound fantastic.
You
Lurking.
do?
He's
You
working
do?
and lurking.
Working and
Right,
lurking.
working and lurking. That's a good one. That's a good one. So how are you guys doing? Your Podfather, you're good, and Sweets, everybody's good up there in this uncertain time.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, with the C virus going around and everybody's wearing masks, and we're all gonna be careful and watching the news, and then you got everything else going on right now. It's it's been crazy. It's been really it's not even enjoyable to watch the news. You don't see anything that resembles sanity.
Yeah.
How about you, Ed? What are you doing down there?
I'm good. We're just doing the same old thing, and then all the craziness with all the the thing that happened in Minnesota went on, and that rattled us, and I think we should talk on that a little bit today, because this is the First Responders podcast, and it's something that I think we need to address. Mike, you and I were talking before, you being a cop and with all this craziness going on, I feel bad for everybody out there, and George Floyd's death was definitely not acceptable. And you said, as being a cop, you there's no way you can even look at that as far as being justifiable. Zero.
Yeah, I don't know any police officers or anybody could look at that video and think that was proper police procedure.
Yeah,
that was just ignorance.
Yeah.
Malice. There was intent. I got to be honest, though. I don't know if it's racism. It's easy to paint it as racism. White cop, black defendant, black victim, I should say. I guess you could say people would think it's racism, but we don't know that for sure. And you know what? Society doesn't want to hear that, the majority of society. But let me just say this. I was a cop 35 years. I'll look you right in the eye and I'll tell you, I have never acted against anybody because of their nationality, their race, the color of their skin. Never even crossed my mind. And you know what? I don't know any cops that ever have. Mm-hmm. So I work in a city that's very multicultural, Lowell, Massachusetts, about 130,000 people. Huge Southeast Asian population, Vietnamese, Khmer, Laotian. There's a Latino population, very big as well. And the Afro-American black population, I'd say it's about 13%. I'd give it that. But never in my 35 years, 28 in the street, did I ever arrest anyone or give anyone a ticket or jump on somebody because of the color of their skin. And you know what? Maybe people find that hard to believe. I don't really give a shit.
Yep.
I know who I am. I know what I've done for society. And you know what? So I don't think every white cop is a racist, or every time a white cop sees somebody that's black that they treat him any differently. However, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But in this case, definitely that cop should go to jail the rest of his life. The 3 cops that were there, they saw it. They should be in jail as well because they didn't act at all.
Yeah. It's a crazy world, Mike, and this is the this show is our stories from the field, and we just needed to address that. And I want to talk about because of the uncertain times, what we just been going through with the coronavirus, all this craziness, with the supporters, with the protesters, and all this craziness going on, in Minneapolis. I want to hear some good stories from you. We heard some funny stories, but what are the standout stories that that you have in the back of your mind? That did you ever help an old lady cross the road? Did you one of those kind of heartwarming stories? I know you talk about bringing gifts to the kids during Christmas time. Stories like that, man. Stories where we need some good stories. It goes across all, it crosses every race, every creed, everything, and it's just for human beings. That's a story I want to hear from you today.
Well, I got to be honest. I've helped a lot of elderly, blind, special needs people across the street. I mean, especially Lowell's, it's a good-sized city. The downtown area is busy. There's a lot of, motor vehicle traffic. So while in the cruiser, I would see a blind man at a set of lights with his dog waiting for the light to change. If traffic wasn't, super busy, I would put my lights on, jump out, make sure the people behind me knew what I was doing, and I would introduce myself to Mr. Asian, that was his name. Say, hey, it's Mike Miles, Mr. Asian, looking across the street. Oh, thanks, Mike, and would cross it. Elderly gentleman one night fell off a curb. I walked him home. I didn't know there was a gentleman watching me, and the gentleman's name was Ray Redigan. For 30 years, Mr. Redigan sent me a Christmas card every year to the police station and tell me what a great guy I was, because he saw that one act of kindness, one act. Bringing, when my oldest daughter, Michelle, was a young girl, I worked in the, what they call the projects. We'd wrap gifts, Barbie dolls, and those little Matchbox cars. Mm-hmm. And I'd buy a couple dozen of each, and we'd just bring them to the kids. Like, a lot of kids didn't have gifts and stuff. Okay. Hey, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm not the only one who was doing this. I work with numerous cops. We gave out candy on Halloween. We have it in the car, and but not every. Nowadays, you could never do that. People would think you're giving out poison candy. I mean, they would. They'd be questioning it. People look at police officers in a different light than when I came on in 1980. I think the elderly and the children, looked to us for help, and the kids looked up to us. It's not like that anymore, I don't think. Society's changed. I don't think policing has changed, but I think there's a lot more limitations on what you can do or are expected to do. Mm-hmm. But I do have a ton of stories. As you know, Ed, I can tell a million stories.
Well, that's why we got you on here.
Yeah.
But, like you said, policing's changed, but the times have changed, Mike, too. And, there's a lot of lawyers out there, a lot of people who that don't want to kind of look at things in the right way. You know what I mean? And,
right.
And if you do something wrong, look, I could sue you for smoking that cigar the wrong way.
Absolutely.
You just got to get a scumbag lawyer to fucking take it on for you. You know what I mean?
Well, what I noticed in court over the years testifying from the stand, lawyers in the early 80s, it wasn't as prevalent because the police were much more protected. They didn't have, lawyers just couldn't get your personnel folder. The Freedom of Information Act, I'm not sure when that came out with the press and everything. All of a sudden, you'd be on the stand for an arrest for an armed robbery, and the lawyer would have your personnel folder and say, are you the same Mike Miles who had a problem with alcohol and drugs in 1986? Were you in your right mind when you arrested my defendant, my client? And it was like, now it was just a different level,
Yeah.
And that's why testifying in court, a good lawyer can just make the jury completely forget about what the defendant did. If the cop has one iota of a mistake, in other words, if he was late for work too many times, if he got caught or whatever, speeding, or he got a ticket outside of the, his jurisdiction, and it got back, to the department. Whatever mistakes you made would go in that. People they used to call police, the best, or I forget the exact word, Lowell's finest, that we used to hear. Mm-hmm. When I first come on, I'm like, what the hell does that mean, Lowell's finest? I'm far from Lowell's finest. But but I think that's what they wanted you to aspire to, that you're supposed to be bulletproof. You make no mistakes. You go to work and you go home and you just, hang yourself in the closet for 8 hours and go back to work. But as we know, that's not reality.
Yeah. Well, you guys are human beings. You guys are, You're just like us. You're just like me. I have a job. You have a job, and you can't take those jobs home with you. You have to, leave them at the station and then come home and be a mom and dad, a husband and wife. And sometimes it's hard to. Some cops I know that can't do that, and that's what I believe. Not society, but I think the police departments, and that's what they want. Those guys who are cops all the time, so they're even a better cop when they come to work. And but I think the best cop out there is a cop who has balance, just like you, Mike. If I ever was to meet you on the street and you weren't dressed, and I didn't know you, and you weren't dressed in your police uniform, I would never have ever guessed that your profession would be a cop. And
Right.
Never, ever. You know what I mean? And some people, you're like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely a cop. And this is just from a civilian standpoint of view. But,
Right.
I always can say that guy's a cop, that guy's not, or whatever. And it just, you don't come across that way.
I'll tell you a quick story. When tagging, graffiti writing, we call it tagging, but kids started tagging all over the city, buildings, bridges, signs. It was real prevalent, and we have some pretty historical buildings in Lowell. So back in the early '90s, I lived in a museum, the Whistler House Museum. I knew a few artists and stuff. So I came up with this idea of having this off-street art program. So what I did is I went around to high schools, and I talked to the teachers, and I got art students, kids that were pretty, involved with art. And then I went out in the community, and I worked in the projects, and I targeted the kids that were doing the tagging. And I had this art contest called Off-Street Art, 1992. Wow. And what I did was I got 3 artists, local artists, to judge it. I raised money. I gave out, first prize was $500, second prize was $300, third prize was $100. Then I had 15 $50 gift certificates from MVP Sports. I had, and it was in the fall. I had haystacks and pumpkins, and it was along the river. I got a DJ, a pretty cool DJ. I got pizza delivered. Yeah, so this was a big hit. This was called Off-Street Art, and actually the Herman Goldstein Award for Community Policing is given out once a year in San Francisco. My department put me in for it. Unbeknownst to me, I came in second in the nation for this program. Now, I'm not patting myself. I did it for 3 years. But the reason I did it is I wanted to educate these kids that it was illegal what they're doing. However, there was some real talent. I've seen some taggings that are just amazing. I mean, they're hanging from a bridge, and they got cans of spray paint, and they're making these unbelievable murals that are just crazy. So just to make a long story short, the first kid who won, the first recipient of the Off-Street Art program was a boy named Klein Keen. And his mother and father from Cambodia. Her family, the mother's family, owned a large supermarket chain. Obviously, the Khmer Rouge took it off. The father was a medical doctor. Unfortunately, when they came to this country, they had no records to prove who they were. So the father became a therapist, a physical therapist, and the mother worked in a market. Eventually, the father got his medical license. Everything was all, he was back on track. But they'd only been here a short time. Their son ended up going to Philadelphia School of Art.
Wow.
To be a graphic artist, all right? Now, 10 years later, I'm working at Showcase Cinema, and this big, tall, Asian, handsome kid comes up to me, and he's hugging me. I have no idea who he is. It's so kind. I saw him when he was 16. Now he's 26. And, those are the stories that touch my heart because, I know what I did. I didn't get paid extra. I enjoyed doing it. One more. I had a homework study group. College students would get in trouble, drinking, whatever. So they had to come do community service. Well, I'd bring them down to my precinct, and I'd have them do homework study with the kids from the projects on Sunday night.
Wow.
So it was a win-win. The college kids loved it, and I'd buy pizza, and I had a Nerf ball competition, basketball competition, and whoever got the most baskets got a $5 bill. But I had 15, 20 kids every Sunday night in my precinct, not just me, other cops. And these college kids would come in, they'd be thrilled. They'd be helping these kids with their homework. And you know what? That was called the homework program or whatever it was. And I had a career day for girls in the projects where I had professional women come in and speak to the girls, and I had buses pick them up. I really got involved in community policing, and I'm not saying everyone should do this, but I was known in the community I worked in, which was the projects, housing mostly, as somebody that people liked. So, it just took a little extra work. And I arrested people too, and believe me, I did things that cops do. But I mostly, I think I was there for the population that I was serving. They trusted me. They believed in me. I wasn't a guy that you could call up and say, "Hey, I want to give you some information." I'd give them the number to the detectives because I didn't want that label that you could call me and I'd get somebody arrested.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, that I didn't know about you, Podfather.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot you don't know about me yet. Hey, we got to take a break. We're going to be back answering the call. First Responders Podcast. Got the Podfather and Jersey Ed. We'll be right back.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast. I am the Podfather, and I'm here with Jersey Ed.
Jersey Ed here, guys. How's it going?
We just took a break, and we're back live, and we're here with Sweets, producer extraordinaire.
Sweets, what's up? We're going to do a podcast pick of the week real quick.
Yes.
Don't mind.
I'm going to give you a drum roll real quick.
Give me a drum roll.
Oh, that's a hell of a drum roll.
That was a long one.
That was a long one. All right, everybody. Jersey Ed's podcast pick of the week is Police Off the Cuff. Host Bill Cannon and Mark DeMeo, two former New York City police officers, detectives turned comedians, share war stories, give you a peek behind the badge, and talk about comedy, current events, and everything in between. You can find Police Off the Cuff podcasts wherever you get your podcasts from.
Hold on, I want to write this down. Police Off the Cuff, right? Police Off the Cuff.
Off the Cuff.
I got to check this out because I know I could do stand-up. I could only do about 3 minutes, but I got some good material. And I often thought about if I could have just had an opportunity, I guess I could have.
Well, I'll get you on their show, Podfather.
Yeah, because I love comedy, and I don't know. I think I'm a funny guy.
Yes, we do.
You are a funny guy.
I'm a fun guy.
You are a funny guy.
Yeah,
you got a good sense of humor. I think you'll do great.
So before the break, we were talking about some of the good stuff the Podfather's been doing, and some of the crazy stuff that's going on in the world, from COVID to all the police stuff and all the protests going out there, and it's so much. We got hit with so much all at once. I mean, from March till now, everything kind of imploded, and we as society, I believe, have to deal with everything.
Right.
Cops, whatever you are, first responders, everybody has to deal with it. And there's a lot of stress in it, and there's a lot of craziness going on. So the question I have for you, Podfather, and I know that this will relate to it, but what do you do? Like, I'm sure you've seen something like this. You were at protests. We had to protect the protesters and everything. And you may not have agreed with it, but that's your job. You had to do it, and that's how you have to do it. But what's some of the ways that you kind of either decompress or relax from this or get it out of your mind? Because there's a lot going on here. That's why I wanted to hear some of the good stories from you, because I want some of these guys listening. Okay, let's take my mind off it. Let's listen to Podfather handing out Christmas gifts. But what's some of your ways to decompress from this?
Well, there's a few things. We'll start with ice cream, and we'll talk about Green Acres, Andy and Mayberry, Goma Pile. No, I can't watch the news. I mean, I get up in the morning. I watch the first from 6 a.m. until 6:15. I get the gist of what's going on in the world. And that's it. I shut it off.
Yeah.
There's no sports, so I can't. But I do go buy 2 newspapers. I buy a New York paper and a Massachusetts paper. And, I look through the papers. Of course, I'm retired now, so I have a lot of opportunities. I smoke a cigar. I feed birds. I feed squirrels. I take pictures. I got a nice Nikon. I've been taking a lot of pictures, but for at night when I go home, I just make sure I watch something that's uplifting. Like I said, the old comedies on TV. I'm not watching them for hours and hours, maybe an hour and a half. I go from Seinfeld to Green Acres to all these shows. I'm reading a lot more. I just try not to, and I look at both sides. I don't just watch conservative TV, Fox News. I don't watch CNN at all. I don't like CNN for my own personal reason. I loved Miles O'Brien. Miles O'Brien was a reporter for CNN. He was also a personal friend of mine and Tommy Fleming's. And
Wow.
we gave him at one of my seminars, one of our seminars back in 88, 89, we gave him an award because he did a special on police stress. It was called The Enemy Within. And,
Okay.
and it was about police stress. And Tom Fleming and I had started this company called New Attitudes, nonprofit organization, and we were just helping cops and their families. No money involved. We didn't get paid, but we would direct them in the right direction for personal problems and stuff. So Miles O'Brien came in and he interviewed us, rode around with us, and I just followed his career. We gave him an award down in Framingham, Massachusetts, at a beautiful hotel where we had a seminar with about 200 people. And, I just always kind of followed his career, and I would send him a card once in a while. He was in a bad accident. He's a pilot. He's lost limbs and everything. I mean, he's had a rough life. But after he left the newsroom at CNN, I don't know. I just couldn't watch it. But I do watch a very, very liberal station, WGBH. I follow their news too, so I get both sides of it. But other than that, Eddie, there's not really much. I love nature. I love being outside. I love cigars, and I love my kids and my grandkids. I'm very fortunate.
Well, that's a good way to wind down is nature. And I love to run. Again, I'm not a police officer or a first responder, but with everything in the world today, I get out there and I'm on a run through the woods or through a neighborhood or whatever where it's peace and quiet. It's my own serene time. Exercise is also good. I know Podfather used to run, and was that some of your stress reliefs too when you had a rough day at the office, on the job, whatever you guys call it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I used to go running before work, sometimes after work. I used to get out at 12. I worked early nights for 28 years, 4 to 12 for 28 years in a cruiser. And I'm proud to say that because not a lot of people make, that commitment and stay in that position. Now, cops listen to this that are lieutenants and captains might say, hey, that guy's a dope. He never, he didn't pass the promotional exam. Well, you know what? I always did pass it, but I always was like in an 82, they'd get down to 85. I had an 84, they get down to 86. And I'm glad I didn't get promoted because it made me want to go back and get an education, master's in social work with people. I was more of a social worker type of cop. Don't get me wrong. I rolled around with a lot of people. I've been in a lot of fights. I can handle myself, and believe me, nobody was pushing me around. I never run from anything, and I wasn't always looking to fight, but sometimes you have no choice. Yeah. You can be in the best mood, feeling on top of the world. You get a call and somebody attacks you. What do? You can't run out the door. You got to stand there and fight. So I was always ready. I did push-ups, sit-ups. I used to run. I loved running. I put on a lot of weight when I was in a cruiser so long. Since I retired, I've lost 42 pounds. I feel great, I walk now. I also walk. I don't walk a long distance, maybe a mile and a half, 3 times a week. But
good.
I have some weights. I throw them around a little bit. But
Good. Mike, Podfather, talk about, I liked what you said about I gained weight sitting in a cruiser all those years. What would you have done differently? Because we know,
right.
You know what this is. We know food is directly connected to our stress, to our feeling good. Like you said, you started off with ice cream. You started this whole question off with ice cream. What would you tell the young officers out there, maybe that are on that shift, that 4 to midnight shift, how to eat a little different or different kind of way of life than you did in that police cruiser for that 28 years? Right.
Well, you know what? In our union, and I was in the union for many years, and I was the vice president of the union, we never had a clause where we had time to eat. There was never we have 15 minutes that we can eat. We never had that because it's the type of job you really can't. But you could go eat. You could call off, and if your sector was clear, and you'd call in and say, car 4 to low, yep, go ahead. Requesting to be off at George's or Santoro's or whatever restaurant, and they'd say fine, but you had to know that you could be eating the best meal in the world. If you got a call, you left that meal or you took it with you, whatever you wanted to do. But that was the type of eating that was me. My kids watch me eat, and I know they look at me and go, "Wow, what a fucking savage he is," And I don't mean to be that ignorant guy eating like. I had to learn. I've actually had to learn to slow down, and I still haven't mastered it, because I'm always eating to beat the clock, to just eat it and get it down, not enjoying it like I should. But I would just say, get out of your cruiser, and I know a lot of departments now, they want you walking around. I did. I used to get out and check areas, but not near as much as I wish I had, you know what I mean? I could tell you a quick story. Yeah. There was an elderly gentleman lost back in '84, I believe, and he was lost from a nursing home. A beautiful summer day. It's about 5 p.m. I get the call. I go over to myself and my partner, we go over to the nursing home, and they say, "Yep, Fred's missing. He went out the front door." What's Fred look like? He's about 5'2", glasses, and he has a Johnny on. Well, it's not going to be hard to find Fred, So as we're leaving the nursing home, I see this elderly man shuffling along Varnum Avenue, which is a very busy street where there's hospitals and multiple nursing homes. So I said, that's got to be Fred. He had the foam slippers on. I pull up. "Hey, Fred, how you doing?" He looks me in the eye, and he says to me, now I'm 26, 27. He says to me, "Dad, you said you'd come." Well, I got to tell you, I don't know why, but it made me emotional. I got teary-eyed, and I went over and I grabbed him. And I said, "Come on, I'm here now. Let's go." And I walked him up the walkway. And I was kind of behind him, and I noticed that his ass cheeks had come to a point. Like his little bum, the cheeks came to a point. And for some reason, I don't know whether it's PTSD or not, but that stuck in my head my whole life, my whole career. And now that I'm 66 years old, I look in the mirror and I say, Jesus, my ass it's not there yet, but I'm like, yeah, it's coming. That's going to happen. But I think if I'd gotten out of the cruiser more and maybe done a little more walking, I wouldn't have to be Fred,
That is funny. I want to go back to a story that you just said, because I do have a firefighter story. So what you said about the eating habits real quick, I want to talk about. I was at a firefighter, Anthony Lancelotti, who was a guest on our show a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
Funny
go
guy.
check that episode out. Anthony Lancelotti, firefighter in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
He invited me to the firehouse for dinner, right? So I was, and Anthony's a really good cook. These firemen, as you know, they're fucking really good cooks, right? So the minute he said, "I'm there, I'm going for fucking," dinner. So we're all sitting there. I think there was 10 guys at this huge table in the firehouse. Anthony's in the kitchen. He doesn't want me to do anything. I'm his guest. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is like, I'm the fucking, the celebrity guest here. They're all going to cater to me. Pasta goes on a table, huge salad, all kinds of stuff. It was like for a king. I said, "Did you do this for me?" He goes, "No, this is how we eat every night." I was like, "Oh shit! I should have been a firefighter." Yep. So we sit down. I am telling you, Podfather, no more than 2 forkfuls of this fucking spaghetti going in my mouth. Yep, exactly. Out the door. I'm like, what do I do? I'm sitting there and everybody's gone. Food is all over the place. I'm like, I guess I'll just keep eating.
Well, that's the beauty, right? And they had to go. And I like the fact they don't cover the food up. They just go. I'll tell you, that's a career. I've been around it. I've slid down the pole. I've eaten in many firehouses. I have some great friends that are firemen that are no longer with us and that still are. But I got to tell you, that's a career that I'm so glad I never went into, because these guys, you talk about heroes, I'll tell you, that's a job. And that's a job that, nobody in their right mind could watch. I mean, these guys, sometimes they don't get calls, but they're doing other things. Yeah. But for that one time when there is a fire, and I've seen some buttes, I've seen some mill fires, 5-alarm, 4-alarm, crazy. They're doing it. They're working it. And there was a heart bill passed in Massachusetts. Heart, the organ inside your chest, the heart bill. And it's because of firefighters. They were dying at such a rapid rate. They were dying in their 40s and early 50s. And the average life expectancy of a male is about 61, 60. But it's gone up a bit, but it used to be down to 58, 59. But and that was firemen. Firemen and police were like 58, 59, 20 years younger than the average men in society because of the jobs. And what they figured out, just real quick, in layman's terms, was when you'd get a call, your adrenaline pumps, everything goes, fight or flight, you're on the truck, you're dressed, you're going, and then all of a sudden, false alarm. Now you got to subside. And this is that plaque buildup, and this is what they did. Cops too. You get a call, there's a bank robbery. You're all excited. There's a man with a gun. It's a kid with a squirt gun. When you get there, you don't know, but you have that adrenaline, pump and then dump, and after a while, it just builds up. Again, layman's terms,
That I didn't understand. Oh, that's why. Okay, all right, I get it now.
Yep,
all right.
Yep. And that's because the first study was done on firemen because they were dying at such a rate. And I'll tell you, Lowell, Massachusetts, they got some. I am so proud to say that I worked in Lowell for 35 years. With the EMS, I know some incredible people on EMS. Just heroes. They really are heroes. The word heroes being thrown around an awful lot. And you know what? I agree. Nurses, doctors, everyone doing this, yes, they deserve that status. But to me, a hero's always been somebody that, because of the job they were in, they lost their lives, or because they were a soldier, they were serving their country, which there's something that's going by the wayside too. When I went in the Army in 72, 1%, a little over 1% of the society was serving their country. Now it's less than 0.5%. It's just, I don't know where we're going in this country. I'm glad in a sense that I'm an older man. I don't have a lot, maybe 15, 20 years left, but you know what? I'm curious to see where this state, this country is going to be in 50 years. I really am.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, Podfather, that is the stories from the field. This is why we like this show. This is I'm glad you agreed to do this monthly for us, because these are the stories we want to hear. We want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and then in between. And I'm sure you can echo my thoughts as far as the prayers go out to all the first responders out there. What's going on in this world, and on both ends of doctors and the first responders, as far as police officers and all that, and also the protesters who want to change. I understand that. My prayers go out to them too, because we do need a change, guys.
Absolutely,
some kind of change in this world. To look at everybody as one, not just as this race, that race, and this race. I think this will bring us, as long as it's done peacefully, it'll bring us all together. It'll bring us united as one. And of course, you have some stragglers out there doing what they do, but for the majority of it, Podfather, I think this protesting peacefully will definitely bring us all together.
Well, Eddie, I'm all for the protesting peacefully. This is how this country started. I grew up in a part of the world where the first shot heard around the world. Concord, Lexington. I've been there for the reenactment. I don't know. I can't get off on that. Anyway.
I understand.
Great show.
Good show, Podfather. Stories from the field, and we're going to do it again next month. Get ready for those stories, Podfather.
You got it, pal.
All right,
stay safe out there, everybody. Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast.
Stay safe.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.